Hello, America. Welcome to the Junto Podcast, where we promote the practical applications of critical thinking and bold creativity. I am your host, Edgar Mills. Thanks for joining us. Hello, good people. Welcome to episode 42. I appreciate you guys for sticking with me. In today's world, the social medias, the news, everything we see, everything is very, very, very divisive. There's extremes on either end that seem to be the only things we get to look at. And thoughtful, objective debate and just discourse seems to be lost. Seems to be. I'll tell you now, I spent a 25-year career being very disagreeable and, confrontational. I was an angry guy, had a chip on my shoulder most of my young adult life. And I was real quick for an argument. And I'm not saying my years in the 82nd kind of that's what one of the things that drew me to the Army was that I wasn't up for polite. The guy was telling me what to do, then whatever. That's what it was. There was no debate about it really. As I went up in the rank a little bit, I started asking a lot of questions about why. But I wouldn't say I was a good. I mean, I can argue with somebody, and I guess in terms of win or lose, I can win an argument, with sarcasm and intimidation a little bit or whatever. But that's not. Well, one, nobody wins, and nobody really wins an argument, I guess. And two, the point of debate isn't winning or losing necessarily. Well, no, I mean, I guess it is, but if you're on a debate stage, right? If you're a politician on a debate stage in an election cycle, yeah, you win or lose. But what I'm saying here is that with normal humans in a daily life, arguments and debates shouldn't be for win or lose, but literally to find a way forward, So, yeah, we're going to talk about those things. And I feel kind of compelled. We're going to explore some of the ICE operations up there in Minneapolis and these two recent shootings and try to figure out, get some understanding on those. From my perspective, of course, everything is just opinion, good people. And it's opinion that I think is founded in objectivity and reason. I did a blog, I don't know, last year and a half ago, objectivity and political discourse, and talked about this stuff. How, well, one, when you're debating or arguing or having a conversation with somebody in differing opinions, one, you need to have verifiable facts on your side. Verifiable facts, not analyzed facts that you added in your feelings of why or how a thing happened. But yeah, to start with, you need to have verifiable facts. And then the next thing, I believe, when you're having these discussions or arguments or debates is trying to avoid emotional bias. And that's very difficult. It's very difficult, I know. Telling some people to suppress their emotions is like telling you to go run 100-miler. Like it's without it's just insane. Some people they're emotional people, and it's okay to be emotional. But when you're talking with someone else who isn't exactly like you, and you're trying to get somewhere, right? If you're trying to come to some level of agreement, you've got to keep the emotions down a little. And you need to be able to see reality as it is and not as you want it to be. Everybody has a view of a perspective, I know, but there is an objective reality out there. And depending on the topic at hand, you need to be able to see that objective reality. And then, of course, for me, I believe everything should be analyzed through the filter of individual rights. Yeah. Everything always goes through that filter first. Does it violate individual rights or not? If we have the capacity to understand that everyone, whether they consciously or subconsciously, act out of self-interest, everyone does. The most selfless human being on the planet has to act, and there has to be a certain level of self-interest, even if it's just to stay alive, right? At some point, you have to go eat. At some point, you need a drink of water. And that, on the most base level, is self-interest. But then as we add layers and layers and layers of social and cultural complexities on top of that, people still sort of act in their self-interest. And if it's rational self-interest, right? If it's well thought out and there's a purpose in it and it's not coercive or it doesn't violate someone else, then yeah, then that's good and that's right. And if we understand that about everyone, not just people we agree with, but people we disagree with, if we can understand that about everyone, then we can start to find some kind of common ground there. Now, you guys know I love the Stoics. And this one comes up a lot. But Marcus Aurelius said that we can't control outside events. We can only control our reactions to them. And Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. So there's, even back then, not even, everything we do comes from something that has a foundation, a history, you know. And debate, I think, can back as far as the Stoics, they had very good roadmaps for how to behave. But using those Stoic philosophies, if you're having a heated debate about whether or not ice ought to be in Minneapolis or wherever, you have to take a step back, you know, do your little breathing exercise, and then you have to have a meaningful response that has a foundation in some kind of value system, some kind of justice, right? That's one of the big things that the protesters are up there on about, justice. But they don't talk much about some of the other virtues like patience or whatever. And they do consider themselves courageous, I'm sure. But these are things that you need to consider before you respond to some of these hyperbolic situations out there. These are things that I've only learned and I'm still learning in my latter years here, folks. Again, I was a very confrontational guy, and all it took was one word given to me in ill will or being condescending or sarcastic, and I would launch. I could have a debate, but the very moment, you've heard people say, I will match your energy. Well, that's not what I did. I would immediately try to intensify that. If you come at me and it's not in good faith, if you're trying to especially be condescending, I was especially tender to that. Maybe out of insecurity, you know, I don't know, but I was especially tender to the condescension, and I would immediately turn into the gigantic asshole. So yeah, I've learned in my latter years here The more I read, the more I interact with humans different than me. In the Army, there's a lot of humans different than you, for sure, even on your team. But you all have a very humongous common factor there, and that's being in the Army. So anyway, where I lost it, virtue, you have to take a breath, all right? Don't immediately respond. And if somebody's coming at you in a sarcastic tone, don't give it back straight away. Just take it in and then respond with a little bit of patience. Yeah. I think the goal, especially, if things start to escalate, like tensions start to rise a little bit, the goal is de-escalation. It's not even necessarily now even finding common ground. And I'm not saying you got to back off of every argument at all. That's not at all what I'm saying. But you absolutely need to maintain a certain level of civility, and you can't let it escalate to violence, for sure. And at some point, I mean, you agree to disagree and be done with it. We have a hard time doing that these days. Well, I see this on the socials and on the news and stuff, which is that's part of the answer. Is it's on the socials and the news. So is it even real? There are people out there. I mean, never mind paid agitators and never mind all these things. There are people who are deeply invested on one side or the other of any given situation. Practically speaking, right? Subtle debate techniques, how you talk to people can really just change, maybe not change their mind on an issue, but definitely change the way they interact with you. You don't have to call someone out, or you don't have to directly, harshly challenge their worldview. You can ask probing questions without attacking anyone, right? You can ask slightly more subtle questions, and then you don't have to immediately start hammering someone with your perspective either. Take theirs in. What evidence brought you to this point of view, man? What was the catalyst? Why do you think the way you think? And not in a confrontational way, just like genuine, give me some history on how you came to this conclusion. And then once you understand that, you can start to develop a counter argument or a strategy. Active listening, and I'm still kind of hard at this. I'm not very good at this, but active listening is very important. It's something as simple as just repeating back, what they said, right? So that they see that you understand, or you're listening for one, and that you understand. And it kind of shows a level of respect if you take the time just to listen without responding. Yeah, that'll open the dialogue a little bit. And if I say this all the time, I don't have a lot of sympathy for a lot of things, but I do have empathy for everyone and everything. I understand a lot of perspectives and I understand why people are where they are. Whether I agree with it or not, it's one thing, but empathy. You have to have some empathy to avoid, getting into a conflict. And if somebody feels like you understand them, you're halfway to a friendship right there. But in a debate, right, in an argument, in a dissent over some of these, hey, I understand why this is important to you. And then you can start to shape your argument. Instead of going all the way hard right or left to your perspective, you go to a shared sort of common ground and discuss on that for a little while. And these aren't like Jedi mind tricks. They seem that way, but they're not Jedi mind tricks. It's just tools to build a connection with someone, a real connection with someone. And if you call yourself a Christian, then it's kind of, these tools are kind of rooted in compassion, right? You don't have to hate somebody on the other side of the political aisle. You can still have compassion for their perspective. All right. Love your neighbor. as you love yourself, even when you disagree. Now, a lot of people, I know you guys are listening and talking about, you're thinking in your mind some of the more extreme acts out there that go beyond this. But those things were started brewing somewhere, right? So if we can keep our early conversations very civil and our early disagreements and our early debates very civil, we can avoid these extremes down the road. Man, excuse me for coughing so much here. So if you spend time on social media, yeah, your echo chambers, they amplify the extremes. And in some cases, it's turning average citizens into enemies. Now, here, listen to me when I say enemies. I've said this before on this podcast, and I'm going to continue to say this. Enemy is a strong word. We have, in the modern day, allowed words to be manipulated, to lose their true meaning, to lose effect. But I'm telling you right now, enemy is a strong word. And no average citizen is enemies with any other average citizen, no matter what you think. Unless you're a psychopath willing to go murder your enemy and his whole family and bloodline, then you're not enemies. You just disagree. Please don't minimize the power of words, good people. And a good example of that is the left like to use the word Nazi. They love to use the word Nazi. Everybody's a Nazi. Or racist. Everybody's a racist. And it just, after a while, loses its juice. And then nobody gives it any credence. In the modern political climate here, now, so what we're talking about today is the ICE stuff, right? The immigration and the methods in which it's being enforced and the outcome, the consequences, whether intended or unintended, and all these things. On one side of that aisle, you could say, I guess, the left, who is prioritizing illegal immigrants essentially over citizens. Borders are imaginary. There is no such thing as borders. No human is illegal. Leave them alone. Everybody should come in and be paid for. And then on the other side of that is you have extreme law and order. We have to close our borders down, build the wall as high as humanly possible and close it, and send out the troops to round up the illegals, which is kind of what's happening, to achieve some magical level of, absolute security. And this is extreme as well. It overlooks, each individual unique story out there. Because yes, this country was in fact built by immigrants. Everybody ultimately is an immigrant in America. Historically, right? Historically. Doesn't matter how many generations lived here. But the point is, your forefathers came from somewhere. Probably Europe, yeah, right? In America, probably the majority of folks are English, Irish, Scottish, Italian, German, European. There's a balance. Now, I'll go ahead and hammer on government a little bit. Congress is mandated in the Constitution to make regular immigration and nationalization. It's Congress's job to create policy and SOP to make this a practical thing. Well, Congress has failed, as Congress does over and over again. Yes, I'm a libertarian. No, I don't believe in open borders. I do believe in free trade, and I do believe we should have regulated immigration. Simply because you have to know you're not a sovereign nation if you don't know who's coming and going. You can't have benefits from the government, which arguably there shouldn't be anyway, but you can't have a system of benefits and then not be able to track citizens, at least who is or isn't a citizen, because at that point you have more people. The government's paying out more than it's bringing in. And good people, I'm pretty sure Social Security is a good example of that. It's a necessary, just logistical thing. It's got nothing to do with human rights. It's got nothing to do with no person is illegal or whatever. It's got to do with logistics. Now, hey, just get rid of all the entitlements. I'm on board with it. I'm on board with it, good people. I'm on board with it. But we know there's other nefarious stuff going on there, importing voters and such. But then what? Then what are we going to look like? What are we going to do? All the dystopian movies. I guess I watched a movie last night. It was whatever the newer version of The Running Man. Now, I'm an 80s kid, right? I was born in 72. All the action heroes of the 80s, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stallone and all those. Running Man, it was pretty good. It was awesome. I liked the storyline, the whole thing. The new one I saw last night, they tried to set it up. You could see that it may have had a little bit of a lefty spin on it. A little bit. They tried to make union, guys look like the heroes, which I don't believe is the case at all. And if you're in a union, let's argue it. Speaking of civil debate, I'm down for it. Unions have outlived their purpose. And in my opinion, unions now are just another lobby, just another centralized authority to suck money out of those it professes to help. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't think it was that great. I like the idea of a rebellion in an underground, but they didn't do a lot of good character development. The most interesting character in the movie was Michael Cera, who played his dad was a cop, and it was corrupt when they went public. The cops went from working for the community to working for the government, and then working for a corporation, right? Ultimately, a corporation runs everything in this movie, which is very, corporations doing corporation-y things. It's evil. And I don't 100% disagree with that. But anyway, Michael Cera was the most interesting character. He was in it for like 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, it was a dystopian max control. Everything was 1984 style, and you were out there doing the Running Man for entertainment. Betting your life against money, right? So I don't know. I didn't think it went over that well. And then at the end, he was like the everyman with the hoodie and a face mask on. And they tried to glorify that, right? The little man beats the corporation. And then at the very end, when Killian who was Josh Brolin, who in the middle of the big studio, the big bazillion-dollar studio, and he's falling down on his face, and then Ben Richards comes up and and murders the guy. They glorified a thing that I don't think they should be glorifying in that way in the modern day. Yeah, protest. It's inherently American to protest. But understand the environment that you're in. Understand if you're protesting government overreach because Donald Trump's in charge, but you didn't protest government overreach because Biden was in charge, what are you doing? It's just a fashion statement. You're just protesting as a fucking fashion statement. If you want to protest all government overreach all the time, I'm on board. I'm on board with it. Protest it all. Yeah, to include entitlements, to include taxing everything, to include the militaristic use of ICE. Yeah. So let's get to that. Again, I look at everything, folks, through a libertarian lens. I value limited government, and I value individual liberty and personal freedoms. And I call myself a Christian. I got bad language, yes. But I do believe in mercy and justice. Justice for all. Yeah, that's right. I believe in those things. But I'm not what you would classify as a single issue voter, right? I take a lot of things into account when I'm out here analyzing a situation. And no matter what the situation, extremes lead to unintended consequences. That's it. That's what happens. Extremes lead to unintended consequences. We see this in politics like magnified, right? You never see a debate, a political debate that don't immediately go personal. And as soon as it does, it's obscured, obfuscated the topic at hand, and 3 sentences into a retort or a rebuttal, you don't even know what the actual question was anymore. You're like, what the hell are they talking about? And when you start attacking people personally, demonizing people, and it's easy to do, good people, because everybody's got something, right? Nobody among us is perfect. Everybody's got something that they're embarrassed about or that they don't want the general public to know about. Everybody does. So it's easy to get personal in one of these debates. And then once we start demonizing these people personally, then we start to lose our humanity, little bits at a time. Once we look at our opponents in this dehumanized way, our humanity slowly erodes. And at some point, you're not even looking at this person as a human anymore. And this is evidence. You can see the evidence of this is all these people who cheer and celebrate when somebody dies. Yeah, I talked about Charlie Kirk before. Well, what about this young lady? What's her name? Good. Renee Good. Who knows? Oh, we'll get to it. People cheered when Charlie Kirk died. People cheered when Trump nearly got killed. There's a whole segment out there who say both of those are fake and Charlie Kirk's alive, and they set up the fake assassination on Trump. Who else? I mean, the left cheers when a cop gets killed. Yeah. Well, a segment of the left. I'm saying a segment, right? The extremes. They cheer when a cop or someone gets killed, and then just slam dunk him for he shouldn't have been out there doing blah 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 anyway. And then and then the inconsistency and the structure of your belief it falls apart. So when we're talking about these things with other people who may or may not disagree with us, we should consider some things. The words we use. Words matter. Yeah, they do. And then we should consider what we're delivering. Now, I deliver opinion, folks. That's what I'm delivering to you right now. If I say something's a fact, I've checked it most likely, or it's been proven to be a fact. But most of the stuff I'm delivering is opinion, and I'll tell you it's opinion. But let's look. So, all that's going on in Minneapolis right now with I think it's Operation Metro Surge is what it's called. And all the news, they're reporting on all these things. And there's a lot of immigration arrests. And that is sparking protest. But I'm going to draw comparisons here for a sec. Hold on. So, you got the protesters out there. We want ICE out of our city. Disband ICE. Yeah. And then when the unintended consequences, well, it depends, I guess. It could be intended. From a more nefarious, centralized perspective, they could They could be trying to get these results. So there's been 2 shootings in the past couple weeks. And the first was Renee Nicole Good. And with the news, because most outlets are left, they, you remember they were showing the picture of her, 8 or 10 years ago, all innocent and pretty and this and that. And they talk about she was a mother of 3 who loved singing and writing poetry. And she was shot and killed by ICE. Is that meant to be misleading? I mean, are those true things? Yeah, they're probably true things. Maybe she definitely was a mother, and she maybe loved singing and writing poetry. And she was indeed shot and killed by ICE. But it's definitely crafted to... And then her wife, Becca, shared a heartfelt statement about the profound loss. Well, from a different perspective on that, folks, you could say she was out there agitating, what do you call it, interfering with official operations, and that her wife, Becca, was instigating the incident while videoing it on video camera saying, "Drive, baby, drive," or whatever. And you can see the lead-up video to where she's antagonizing these officers. Now, I'm not saying that to say anything except there are 2 sides, the he said, she said, but there are actually 3 sides, right? And then there's the reality. And you can argue that the ICE guy acted too aggressively. Is it possible that he could have just stepped out of the way? Is it possible? Well, because he's allowed under the rules of engagement to shoot her, does that mean he should have? Was she there? Was it in good faith? Was she there just to express her support for illegal aliens? Or was she there to, disrupt and interfere? And I can't remember what the legal term is right this moment. Was she there to disrupt executions of warrant by a federal agent? Now, objectively speaking, right, some of the facts of the matter, she definitely stopped in the middle of a street to block traffic. That happened. Whether or not, what was her intention, I don't know. She blocked traffic. And they got these little groups out there now, these, I can't remember what they call them, the watchers, the something observers, and they got their apps, and they got the little, the whistles where they draw people, protesters, that they announce their locations and stuff like that. Kind of like these flash mobs back in the day, where they'd show up, and it's kind of like that. And then this agent, Ross, approached the vehicle. He was on foot. All the agents were on foot. Well, most of them. They were a vehicle. And he was videoing. And he walked up in front of the SUV. Yep. And then to the driver's side. And Becca, her wife, got out and confronted the agent, also with her cell phone. Everybody's got their cell phone in their hands. And she's antagonizing the agent, telling him to show his face because he had a mask on. And then tensions escalated. Then 2 ICE officers approached and tried to open the driver's side door and ordered Renee Nicole Good to get out of the car. And meanwhile, wife Becca Good urges Renee Good to drive, baby, drive. Renee Good, she backed up the SUV a little bit, and then you could see on video, she turned her wheel to the right and then stepped on it because you could see the tires spin. And on one of the videos, you can see that she clipped Agent Ross, the ICE agent, and and then it shows he drew his gun, fired 3 shots into the windshield while angling off to his right, and then through the driver's side door or window, and then she crashed into a pole, telephone pole. That's what happened. All the whys and hows and what was said and all those things are kind of irrelevant. What to Renee Good, right? She's dead now. Did she have a right to be at a protest? Yeah, for sure she had every right to be. Was she willing to die for immigrants? I mean, I don't know. Was she all in for protesting ICE? At what level of commitment do you think she had? Did she have a realistic perspective on what might happen? What are the possible outcomes here of what I'm doing? Or was she caught up in a moment emotionally, and with her wife urging her on, egging her on to? Now, as far as blame goes, I put a lot of it on the wife. Yeah. So I think legally the guy was legally within his rights to shoot her if he thought that she was trying to run him down. I think, tactically speaking, he probably could have de-escalated. That whole thing could have probably not been escalated, but that's not what the norm is right now with ICE. They're going out there to escalate tensions, it seems, which begs the question, are they diverting from something else? Who knows? But I don't see a lot of de-escalation going on the videos. And I'm an armchair quarterback. You know, I'm not in the moment. But if I'm one of, say, 10 agents who are surrounded by a mob of 100 people, I'm probably going to feel a little vulnerable. And so there's a lot of factors. Yeah, a lot of factors. I don't think she needed to be dead. This guy may or may not be able to sleep with himself at night. I don't know what he thinks about it. I know the culture of some units is one of aggression and us against them. I don't think that's necessarily correct either, especially with federal agents who are meant to police non-citizens, but especially agents who are meant to out there policing citizens, interacting with potentially your neighbor. I mean, you're out there escalating stuff because you have a sense of authority. There's doing your job. There's executing your mandated authority. And then there's having this sense of power and absolute authority, right, over all things, because you're doing your job and you think your job is the most important thing on the planet. So, yeah, there's a couple of sides to it. It's hard not to get heated when there's death involved over a topic, but you have to be able to look at both sides. Both people involved, I don't think she was very smart for being out there and doing what she did. I don't think she had any clue of what the potential outcomes could be. I don't think she had any goal physically. Oh, I'm just going to disrupt these guys for a minute or whatever. I don't think she played it out I don't think she understood. And then the agent, did he wake up in the morning thinking he was going to smoke somebody? I like to say no. I like to think no on that. I like to think, unless you're a psychopath, I like to think that you wake up in the morning, all right, I'm going to do my job today. I hope everything goes well. And we execute whatever we're executing, the warrant, and did he think, oh, I'm going to go out and treat all these people with absolute dignity and respect, and hopefully they'll see that I'm a genuine human and not just some machine? I don't know. But you got to take all that into account. Do we need to abolish ICE? No, not necessarily. Well, let me back that up. If Congress could put together a goddamn coherent immigration and naturalization doctrine, law, plan, SOPs, and enforce those just with local law enforcement. Now, I think we need some kind of literal border security and immigration type thing because we need borders. I also happen to think that the military should handle that, but that's another thing. There's a whole lot of entanglements there, but do I think we should get rid of ICE? Generally speaking, yeah, I think we should get rid of all 3-letter agencies. I don't think any of them are very valuable. And I think in this instance, they're contributing more to the problem than they are minimizing the problem. Now, that being said, how many did they roll up? Did they get the number of people they meant to get? Did they get whoever was on the warrants from that? And does that equal mission success even if someone died? I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah. And then we got the other one, the one that just happened like day before yesterday. Alex Pretti. And the news, he's a dedicated ICU nurse at the VA. Yep. And NPR, of course, and then ABC report that he was unarmed, possibly holding a phone, not a weapon, as video suggests. And it is questionable whether or not he was holding a weapon or not. I don't think he was. I saw some video that looked very much like, well, I'll get to it in a sec. Clearly, the federal officers claim self-defense, and this has just stepped up. This has just stepped up the protests, right? This has just stepped them up. Now, that guy had a gun, holstered. He was a concealed carrier. That's one thing. Did he have a right? Yeah, absolutely had a right. Did he have a right to carry a gun out of protest? Yeah, for sure he did. But did he do the risk assessment in his mind? Did he go out intending to be a martyr? I doubt it. I don't know. I doubt it. He was filming this stuff going on. And, they had their little apps with the whistles going out and people were showing up. And an ICE agent kind of shoved a couple of protesters away from one of the vehicles. I don't even know if it was ICE agent. Honestly, it might have been Department of Homeland Security. They shoved two people away, and then this dude, Pretti, attempted to get in between the agents and the two civilians. So he's a self-appointed protector of the protesters and a dedicated nurse at the VA. And then one of the agents sprayed Pretti with a pepper spray. And then on one of the videos, it shows him holding his phone in one hand and he raised the other hand up to kind of shield his face from the spray. And then at that point, 7 agents grabbed Pretti and wrestled him to the ground. And he, of course, resisted, and they pinned him down. And the guy with the pepper spray was hitting this dude with the pepper spray can. And while he was on his knees and restrained, now not restrained in cuffs, restrained with his arms pinned by some of those, handful of those agents, one agent pulls Pretti's gun from his holster. Yep. So he was essentially disarming Pretti. And somewhere around 8 seconds after that, an agent yelled out about a gun, right? And the agent who pulled the gun out moved away. And then another agent unholstered and started blazing. Fired one shot into this dude while he was still being held down, restrained. Well, 4 shots, ultimately, that guy shot. And then another agent, the one who had the pepper spray, drew his firearm and fired 6 shots into this dude. Now, DHS says that, all it says was approach to U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. I approach everybody every day with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. That's what I carry, right? He was not wrong for that. He didn't have it in his hand. They didn't know that guy was armed until they had him down on the ground, scuffing him up. So, another angle on that is that the agent who disarmed Pretti with Pretti's gun had a negligent discharge, which was the one shot heard first, and then one of the agents drew and pumped 3 into the guy, and then the other guy drew and pumped 4 into the guy. So now I'm inclined to believe this, and I'm inclined. I'll go back and do a little more in detailed research. I didn't mean to make this a Zapruder film analysis here. I'm just saying, one angle on this is that negligence from the agents, not just abuse of power and authority, but negligence, caused this dude to get shot. And I'm inclined to believe it, good people. I'm just inclined to believe it based on what I know about officer training. Yeah, based on what I know about officer training. All right, so the Pretti, what was he doing out there? Did he have every right to be there? Yeah, he had every right to be there. Did he have any right to step in between a DHS agent who was dealing with other people? Well, no, not really. Right? Not really. He became the self-appointed hero of the day. Did he have a right to have a firearm on him? Yeah, absolutely he did. I think he was a licensed concealed carrier. Now, the fact that he was carrying a SIG, that's a whole nother. All right, anyway, I'm not making fun of this guy's death at all. I'm saying the SIG could have went off by itself. That's all I'm saying. All right. He had every right to carry that SIG. Now, let me tell you what one of the news stories wrote, or what I read on some of the things. They said that he went there. They tried to tell you his intent. That he went there with two extended capacity mags, and it had a red dot optic on it. So he meant to engage at long range. So he was prepared for a long range shootout because he had 2 mags and an optic on his gun. The only reason my gun doesn't have 21 rounds is because it's a Glock 19 and only carries 15 round mags. Modern handguns, there are some out there with that capacity. Hey folks, one sec. All right, good people. Sorry about that. Where was that? Yeah, right to own a gun. That guy had every right. Yes, he did. Every right. Let's see. Had a right to be there. Yes, he did. Did he have a right to interject into DHS, Border Patrol, ICE operations? No, not really. Legally speaking, no. And this is, and look, I'm going to always draw the distinction between, well, legally don't mean morally right. But if you try to use morals as a standard, good people, especially from the left, if you're saying morally you have the high ground, which in this case maybe you do, are you holding yourself to the same moral standard across the board? Now, I saw a very good interaction on the socials, and some guy says, and he posts up, and he was in defense of ICE, right, in defense of DHS or whatever, and he says, why was that guy bringing a gun to a protest? And then you might go, yeah, why would he do that? That don't make any sense. And then the retort to that was, well, what Kyle Rittenhouse brought a gun to a protest. Now, I thought that was pretty succinct because the right, generally speaking, got behind Rittenhouse based on moral high ground and his right to keep and bear arms. Is the right on board with Mr. Pretti, Alex Pretti, with his right to keep and bear arms? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, think about it. Are you intellectually consistent? All right, anyway, there's 2 sides. There's 3 sides. Hell, I keep saying this. There's your perspective, their perspective, and then the facts of the matter. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that I think the Renee Good thing, I think legally it's pretty cut and dry. It's been a long-standing precedent that if somebody tries to hit you with a car, that's considered assault with a deadly weapon or whatever. Legally speaking, now I'm saying legally, guys. But this one right here, I think is a little more ambiguous. I think it's a lot more ambiguous. And I think if video evidence comes out that this goddamn DHS guy or whoever had a negligent discharge, which caused the sympathetic fire from other agents, I think we're gonna have a problem there. Yeah, legally speaking. And somebody might get charged with murder or whatever you want to call it. No, I don't know what the charges are. I'm not a goddamn lawyer. Negligent homicide, maybe. Hey, man, a lot of stuff going on. Fog of war. There's a lot of stuff going on. Are we at war? Hell no. Oh, well, not on American soil. I think we need to stop acting like it's war. And this is going to bother some of my Republican homies. We need to stop acting like it's war and start acting like what it is a law enforcement action. And it needs to go down like and here's the other comparison, folks. I want to say probably more people were deported during the Obama presidency than the Trump presidency. You didn't see a whole bunch of ICE riots during the Obama presidency. And one take on that is that these sanctuary cities and all these places where ICE had warrants to go and arrest folks, that the local law enforcement were in support of the federal law enforcement. And I don't mean morally, I mean just physically, they supported the effort. The local government supported the federal government's effort to do what they did. And we didn't see all the madness on television. Yeah. I think with these liberal cities trying to be morally superior and virtue signal by not supporting federal agents because they don't like Donald Trump, literally only because they don't like Donald Trump, it's creating more chaos, which is leading to more uncertainty, more fog of war, and then you got people getting smoked by marginally trained federal agents who are dressed like they're in the operators in Call of Duty. All right. There's a lot going on, man. There's a lot going on with all that stuff. I think the tactics from the political tactics, which spill over into the federal agency tactics, this approach of doing these large-scale deployments of agents, right? And they're rolling in with their like RGs or whatever the big, the Bearcats and all these things. And they're rolling in like a military unit, and like company-size elements, 10, 15 trucks, and it looks militaristic. They got all the gear on. They look like they're in the Call of Duty. And I do think that the Trump administration is trying to project all this power and all this force to strike fear into at least the immigrant population, but also to thumb their nose at the left population. And yes, to enforce existing immigration law. So to me, it's not what they're doing, it's how they're doing it. I think immigration law needs to be enforced. And I think if they have warrants, then that's the validity right there. Now, if they can get legitimate warrants for humans, right? Not a place, not a city, like, okay, we got a warrant to go into Minneapolis and round up whoever. No, man, that's not the case at all. I think if they got legitimate warrants, then they are well within their rights to go in and enforce immigration law. I think that the local law enforcement should facilitate that. And I think they shouldn't be doing this with the military type shock and awe. I just think it's creating more problems than it's not. That's what I think. Because we get these unintended Trump's trying to instill fear and shock and awe. The unintended consequences are that we got American citizens getting smoked by other American citizens who work for the government, which paints a picture of these dystopian futures like you see on Running Man and 1984 and whatnot. Now, when Obama was in charge of stuff, the right side saw all government action as like dystopian future, Running Man, 1984 stuff. And now that Trump's in charge, the left sees all government stuff as dystopian future. So what's the common thread there? Government. It doesn't matter who's in charge. The government needs to be restrained, and it needs to do what it's prescribed to do via the Constitution. If you can look at things from that, and I think that's a very centrist view, folks. I really do. I think it's a centrist perspective, because all these things that happen, they create unintended consequences, and they create equal and opposite reactions. Maybe not even equal, maybe overreactions on the extremes. Yeah. We need law and order. We need accountability in our country on all levels, folks. I mean, individual accountability, government accountability, corporate accountability. We're desperately lacking accountability in almost every capacity here in America these days. But I can tell you this, the government is legally bound to be accountable to its citizens. Yeah, that's right. The government is bound to be accountable to its citizens via the Constitution. So as you're debating with your friends and your family about these things, just take a moment, folks, and look at both sides. Now, if you're on one of those extreme sides, this might be more difficult for you. You might find it difficult to look and empathize with the other side. You might find it difficult. And if you're having a holiday dinner debate with your, extreme right-wing uncle or your extreme liberal niece, you guys, can you have a civil debate? If you can't have a civil debate with your own family, you probably need to avoid having debates at all for a little while. Don't go out in public. And if you get a little more irrational just because it is your family, and you feel like you have a little more leniency with poor behavior, reevaluate that, because you're probably treating your family kind of wrong. Yeah. But as you're having these debates, folks, as you're having these arguments, or your lefty, dude at work who you guys stand around the coffee machine and call each other names because you both disagree with whatever, look at the other side. Where are they coming from? If you can't see it, ask. Hey, man, what leads you to this? What was the buildup to get you to this point? Now, that's a broad statement, right? But I mean, be specific. And if he can't articulate that, now we can see a little bit. But if he can't articulate that, if he can't articulate that, well, then that's something for you to process now. Now you're like, okay, now I get it. I see why. And now, now that I can understand why, I can sort of see his perspective in a different way, and I can find some common ground. Yeah. It's out there, the common ground. We don't have these debates in order to blame people or to demonize people. Well, we shouldn't be. And if that's why you're having the debate, then you just don't. You don't need to. And we don't necessarily, folks, have these debates or these arguments in order to change other people's minds. It's just to open up the door for rational debate. You're probably not going to there ain't many of you out there who have the capacity to change my mind on what I believe in the political spectrum. You can give an impassioned speech. You can sell it and frilly it up all you want, but chances are you're not going to be able to change my mind. I can't understand your perspective, and if you tell me, then I can understand why your perspective is what it is. And if you're a rational human, then we can both agree to disagree and still be friends. That's the way it is. But you don't have these arguments to change someone's mind necessarily. Now, if you can present your perspective and why you got there in a compelling way, you might leave a little seed there that can be nurtured. But if you start blaming and name calling and taking score, you've lost the argument there. These debates and these arguments should be more about a collaboration on how to best benefit ourselves, our immediate space, our immediate community, how to foster human dignity even amongst those you disagree with. Oh man, yeah. Even amongst those you disagree with. And libertarian or not, anarchist or not, we need some rule of law in our society. Anarchy is a romantical notion. And if you're willing for the world to go into absolute murderous chaos for probably about it probably would burn out in about 4 to 6 months, I imagine. Millions would be dead. Little pockets of people would be hunkered down in places. It would be dystopian, I believe, because I believe there's enough bad humans out there that would create this negative dystopian future. The romantic side of that is anarchy means no control and no regulate, no people, and then little communities flourish amongst each other, and then everybody goes about their business. But you have to understand there is a devil floating around out there. So that I don't think that's practically. We need the rule of law, folks. As much as some of you want to hate on the cops, we need law. Now, I think policing should be done at the lowest municipal level possible, and I believe it should be headed by elected officials. And I mean locally elected officials. And if some police chief ain't doing the right thing, and his department ain't doing the right thing, then get his ass out of there and let's elect someone who will do the right things. Well, what are the right things? Well, to protect individual rights, to settle contract disputes, protect individual rights and protect contract disputes, and to solve any crime that any physical crime that may have been committed. Not a whole lot else. It's not about blame. Don't blame. It's about collaboration. All right. It's about productive way forward. And I said this in previous podcasts. Compromise, it exists. It's the way it is. You can't have all my way or the highway. We're not Joe Cabot from Reservoir Dogs, where it's my way or the highway. Right? That ain't the way it is. We have to be civil, good people. And hey, check it out. We need to use some critical thinking. And we need to try to find positive solutions. Make an effort to just be a little nicer to the general public. And then keep the Stoics in mind, folks. Look, their philosophy has stood the test. The Stoic philosophies have stood the test. It's been around since, I don't know, 700 BC, somewhere. Stoic philosophy, right? Control your reaction to things and respond with a little bit of respect. Treat each other as co-equal fellow humans, not one better or lesser than another. And I know this is a hard one. The Christians tell us that we need to love our enemies. It's hard. But again, enemy is a big, big word. Enemy is a big, big word, folks. Is there anyone out there who is your enemy? Think about that. Somebody you're willing to take them and their entire bloodline off the planet of the earth. And if so, if you're willing to do that, I mean, that's pretty brutal, man. That's pretty rough. Now, I reckon in modern society, the only people who really have like proper enemies, I would guess, are like gangs, right? One gang despises another gang so much that they're willing to take them and their entire bloodline off the planet of the earth. That's very significant, man. You have people you disagree with. You might have opponents. Yeah, you might have opponents. You might have competitors in your business or whatever. But do you really have enemies? Don't dehumanize people, all right? Don't do that. Look at the human behind their position. Even though some of these people, their position has become their personality and their life. And that's tragic for them. But look beyond that and see that they are human. And just like with these two shootings, question the sources, right? Because Renee Good liked to write poetry has nothing to do with the situation at hand. So be objective and question the sources that you read these things from, and just pick out the facts, right? Just pick out the facts and apply objective reason to cut through the bias. There's always a bias somewhere. Just cut through that with objective reasoning. And when you're having conversations with these humans, listen. Be an active listener. Find some common ground. And if it looks like things are going down a dead-end road on a certain topic, agree to disagree. Agree to disagree. And grab a pint and talk about something else. No need to cut off someone from being a friend or ally because you don't agree with their politics. Because you might otherwise be able to build some greatness together. Not for politics. And I've told you guys this. In my later years, I'm trying to be positive, right? I'm trying to be more positive about the way I approach things. Trying to be more positive about outlooks and long-term. And always looking for positive solutions to problems. And that starts locally, folks. That's your immediate space. That's your neighborhood, your town, your community. And if you want to get active in local politics, do that. Try to vote in people to be of good character. That's where it plays out. All right, that's where it plays out, local politics. And then obviously accountability, folks. Hold all these people accountable. Hold yourself accountable. Yep. Be responsible in your own words and your own actions, and then hold yourself and other people accountable. There you go. Harmonious dissent, folks. Harmony might be a big word too, but we can live in harmony with each other. We don't have enemies out there. Not many of us have actual enemies. Just because the parties are divided and the extremes are divided don't mean we have to be. And we can build stronger communities just by a little active listening, a little bit of empathy. Yep, that's it. And that's where I'm leaving it, folks. That's where I'm leaving it. I felt compelled a little bit to talk about it. Yeah, this ICE stuff is getting a little bit out of control. The reaction to the ICE stuff is getting a little bit out of control. We got to try to rein this in, this extremism. We got to try to rein it in, and that's on both sides. It's on both sides. So make the effort this week. If you're not a nice person, if you're not a friendly person, I'm not a friendly person necessarily. Make an effort to be a little kinder to folks this week. Make an effort to do a little bit of active listening. Start with your family, and then branch out from there. And then make an effort to have a little more empathy for the other side. Now, don't start with your family now. Start from the farthest extreme from your side and try to really empathize with the human, not the platform. I'm never going to agree that a commie is correct. Now, they're misguided. They're confused. But I can talk to this person on a human level and maybe try to see how they got there anyway. And then still maybe go be able to have a pint. That's it, folks. That's what I'm leaving you with. I appreciate you guys for listening. This may, again, I feel like my last couple episodes are kind of maybe kind of weak because there's politics is pervasive. It's causing extremes. We don't want that. We want hopefully maybe next time I'm going to try to do something around the arts. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll discuss some movies or some, I don't even know, friggin' poetry or something. Hit me up, good people. So, thejuntelpodcast.com. Hit me with some feedback. Drop a paper if you want. You can from the website you can attach files, and we'll post those up on the blog. Yeah, like and share and all that stuff for the juntelpodcast.com. It's on all the platforms. And then let's see. Help a Homie Fund. Yeah. Please continue. Look, those of you that are giving to that, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I've never been one to be able to ask for things. I've always been, I guess, what you might say, fiercely independent or prideful and all that stuff. But I think now I'm asking you for things in order to help other humans. I mean, those things, money really, but we're not at the capacity right now where we can take stuff as far as donated clothes or things like that. But one day we might get there. At any rate, Help a Homie Fund, right? That's givesendgo.com/help a homie fund. And that's my so far best effort to be able to be charitable at the ground level, which is where I do business. Okay. Thanks for listening. Please follow all the other stuff, ospreyshootingsolutions.com, twoteamguys.com. And please give me your feedback on things and also suggestions on topics. Okay. Good people. Take care. Be careful through this cold weather thing we got going through here. Bad weather, ice and snow and whatnot. Be careful out there and love your family. All right, good people. Take care. I love you.